Mark Ferry.
Here.
Steve Ballage.
Here.
Amanda Cook. Here. Jacqueline Trainier. Rachel Ventura. Tom Weigel.
Here.
Amanda, do you want to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, first up we have approval of minutes for July 9th, 2019. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First up we have zoning case ZC-19-03 for Plainfield Township, which is a special use permit for dynamic display in agricultural and residential districts. So, Janine, you want to give us a rundown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Zoning case ZC-19-034 takes place in Plainfield Township, and it actually concerns the administrative offices of Plainfield Township. I have the images up here on the screen for you. So the applicant is requesting a special use permit for a dynamic display. They are zoned A1, and a dynamic display is a special use in that zoning district. You'll see there's also a variance associated with this request. That variance was already approved at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last week. So the only thing before you today is the special use permit itself. The applicant is requesting to, or proposing to, replace this existing current sign, as you can see, just one of those letterbox signs, with the dynamic display. We have the little mock-up there right next to the sign on the property. The, excuse me, the agencies that were notified, none of them provided any sort of objection to this. Staff recommended approval with our one standard condition. There were no objectors present at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last week, and the Commission also recommended unanimous approval with the one staff recommended condition. I can take any questions.
Rachel?
We talked about how bright lights were earlier in the year. It does fall into the new category of it being less bright. So we never brought that back to discuss the wattage.
Correct. So we already have existing regulations regarding the dwell time for animations, the brightness of the sign itself. Those, when we went through the exercise a couple months ago, those remained unchanged. So we still have the existing code and regulations regarding that this sign, of course, will have to comply with.
At some point, are we planning to bring that? I know it's a little bit different in this case, but are we going to bring those back to look at?
I was not aware that we were directed. I don't think there were any direction to revisit that at a later date.
We can change some of it. Are there any other questions from the members? We had one person sign up to speak, Charles Willard. You can come in just for questions. So does anybody else have any more comments, questions, concerns? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the special use permit.
Motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up we have number 2. Excuse me. Zoning case ZC-19-037, which is request for a special use permit for keeping horses, farm animals, and livestock, and variance for maximum accessory building area from 1,800 square feet to 2,032 square feet in Moline Township, commonly known as 24835 South Murphy Lane, Moline, Illinois, County Board District number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Zoning case ZC-19-037, as you mentioned, is in Moline Township. The subject property lies at 24835 Murphy Lane in Moline. The subject property is zoned R2 and lies within an area that also has A1, E2, R2, and R2A, as well as I1 zoning districts. The applicant is requesting special use as required for the R2 district for the keeping of horses in order to bring his horses to his property. The applicant wishes the special use be applicable to the entire 3.2 acre site, as well as be transferable to future property owners. This past Tuesday, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the variance for the maximum accessory building area so that the applicant could potentially build a barn to house these horses. The special use, if approved, would hence conform to all other R2 zoning district regulations. The subject property is already improved with a residence and accessory building, so there are adequate facilities for this use. And then, since the subject parcel lies within the Green Bridge subdivision, it is predominantly undeveloped. However, staff feels that with the meeting of the zoning ordinance regulations, the 50-foot animal confinement setback regulations, as well as adherence to the county's manure plan, that this use, if approved, would not impact any future development or other properties' enjoyment of such property. Staff recommended approval of the special use with 7 conditions, which were outlined in your staff packets you all received. And these conditions, again, just ensure that there is mitigation with the waste applications of having horses on a property. There were no objectors present at the Planning and Zoning Commission this past week, and of the public agencies notified, none objected. The EcoCat report identified no threatened or endangered or natural protected areas within the vicinity. And the health department only had comments regarding the actual construction of the stable, which they will have sign-off authority on that building permit when it is applied for. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to approve the special use with the 7 conditions, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Motion to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Did you want to speak still? Sorry.
If you guys have any questions for me?
Okay. Well, you're good to go, so. Next up, we have other business. Number 1, amending section 155-7.30 use table and 155-9.170 A1 mobile homes of the Wolf County zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is the same item that was before you on your July agenda for Land Use and Development Committee. The purpose of this change is mobile homes for security or caretakers in the C6 zoning district. Currently, mobile homes are only allowed in the A1 zoning district and within a mobile home community. The purpose of why this is before you is somebody had approached the department about a private club that they have, and they need somebody to watch over the property. So they asked the department to bring the item forward to the committee. We did that. It was assigned. It was before the committee last month. There was some talk, I believe, but really there was no change to the ordinance as it was presented. So really, I'm just trying to button it up and see if there's anything else that this committee is looking for with this language before it goes before a public hearing at the Planning Commission on September 3rd.
And this is for special use, they had come in for a special
It'd
use.
be a special use permit.
Anybody else have anything on this? I think it looks good to me, so I think we're good to, you don't need a motion to move
Okay.
forward, do you?
I motion for, to go ahead and schedule for public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to schedule it for public hearing. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next up, we have 19-200, a request for a refund of fees for KCC-19-015, which is the Cree Township Fire Protection District, which is out of County Board District 1. Who wants to give us the rundown, Brian?
So this is a type of request that we don't have too often. You may recall Cree Township Fire was before you seeking a dynamic advertising board for their fire district on their property. That was a special use that was granted. They also received other variances that went along with that. Several years ago, in 2010, the county board approved a resolution that stated that the first $2,500 of a zoning application cost would be waived for units of local government, and that waiver was applied to this case. Beyond that, there were $950 in variance fees that were incurred by the fire district. And then there were also some publication costs associated with an appeal of administrative decision and the publication of the zoning case itself. And those amounts are stated in the memo. So the district is requesting a refund of all of these fees. If you look in your packet, you can see the county's fee schedule in here, and it references the fees associated with the actions. And then at number 13, it says, no application fee shall be totally refunded except as determined on a case-by-case basis by the Will County Board. So any other refund that's requested has to come before this committee. Now, I will say that these publication costs are costs that I cannot recall in the 19-plus years I worked here of ever anybody receiving a refund of that cost, because essentially that would be our department paying for their publication of their request. There have been a few instances where zoning application fees have been waived. It's, I think that's kind of, it depended on what board members were, what the makeup of the board was at one time, because there was another time when the board said, we're not waiving any of these zoning application fees. There's another time when they used to waive all of them. So it's currently it's a $2,500 waiver, and anything beyond that, district was the local government would be responsible for. So it's really up to these members of this committee and the board to decide what you want to do here. I just think that it would probably, this is my opinion, that if you were to waive and refund any fees for publication, I think that would be setting a precedent for probably other requests that we really have never done before. So.
Amanda?
I mean, other than the fact that this changes from board to board, so it's worth a shot, do they offer any reasons, like a hardship, why we should do this?
Well, at the fire district, the fire chief Panego, when I talked to him, it's just that it's his belief and the district's belief that you're just, you're taxing another local government, and they shouldn't be subject to any of these fees. So that was just their position. It's money that comes out of their district budget, and they believe that they're a government agency and they shouldn't have to pay any fees.
Well, we already gave them the $2,500, so.
Yeah, I mean, they had problems with their signs, so we didn't tell them to put up a sign as well. So as for the publication, I agree that that's something that they needed to let their residents know. But for the $950 that's left over, what did that cost specifically go to?
Those were for the 5 variances, so there's a base variance fee of $550, and then each additional variance is $100. So because of where the sign was located on the property and the size, it needed variances to meet the code. So they requested those variances. They were approved by the planning commission, and that allowed them to keep their sign in its place and have it a certain size.
So, this is a couple months ago now, I know we went through it, but could you remind me, were those, when they built those signs, were our rules already in place, or we had changed our rules and then put them out of compliance?
So setback regulations were in place. The sign regulations changed in 2012, and this sign that was there prior to 2012. But they're not replacing it with the exact same thing. I mean, they were taking a static sign and making it a digital sign, so they're increasing above and beyond what was permitted in 2012 because they didn't have that sign before. So they're still, the current code would say it can only be this big. They wanted to have it a certain size, so they asked for those variances.
Steve?
Yeah, I think they should be responsible for paying for their own publications. But the other stuff, the taxpayers that already pay in Will County are paying, and then they're paying the fire district. So it's like revolving doors with taxes. So I don't have a problem with not making them pay with saying they shouldn't have to pay that $950. Because it's already being paid by the taxpayers. It's not like it's a private party.
Our committee members?
I walked in on the tail end, but just listening to what Steve said kind of makes sense to me. I mean, if they pay us, I mean, they're paying us with tax dollars. I don't know.
But it would run up our cost on that end, so it
That's
would,
paid by the taxpayers.
we'd be taking from, I mean, for practically us and paying for their stuff, which is not really something that you're wanting.
No, I just
But it's-
wonder
yeah.
how much money does it cost for us to say, you had a sign there already, you're changing it to a digital one, now you can pay a bunch of fees. You know, it's like you're inventing the cost out of thin air. I mean, was there $950 worth of work to say that an existing sign has changed from just a rubber kind of sign to a dynamic sign? It's gonna cost us $950 in fees to make it so it's okay? I mean, so we have rules, and they're following the rules, but the sign's already there. We're not replacing it with a brand-new 10-foot larger sign.
It is a replacement.
Yeah, but it's not being replaced, it's in the same location, there's no impact on anybody. There's nothing that really should, in other words, if you own a house and you say, I want to put up something, a garden, and I want to, according to the rules, you have to have a setback, say, of 10 feet from your property line. And your neighbor says, go ahead and put it up, your garden right on the property line will share it. Well, that's in violation, right? So, you know, sometimes you gotta look at, how does this affect the people? Well, this sign change is not really affecting anybody. And actually, the fire department must see a value in it, otherwise they wouldn't pay all that money to get a dynamic sign.
Yes, I think it might just be helpful, just, I mean, even for, so you know the process, or even for future cases, you might see a refund request is, you know, the department several years ago, and it was several years ago, went through a process of reviewing fee schedules and identifying the cost of doing business. So the fees that are being requested to be refunded today are completely separate from any building permit fees. These are solely related to the zoning process. And when we went through the fee schedule, we did an analysis that includes how much time is on average was spent on specific types of zoning cases, the number of hours a person would spend on it. It included you know, the fringes, including the salary. It looked at the overhead of the department, all the way down to the paper that perhaps might be laid on the table with an agenda. And when we did these analyses, and these for special uses, map amendments, variances, we came up with the cost of what it was to do business. And we tried to get as close to cost recovery as we could. And then with the board at that time, chose not to go full cost recovery, and fee schedule structured in some different ways to try to address commercial, industrial, and residential. But in any event, the bottom line is that the county still does subsidize the zoning process through the fee schedule. But just so you understand, I mean, it's your decision as to how you want to address this particular request and the other come forward. But I want to put in the context as to how we looked at the fee schedule several years ago and what is it actually covering. In this case, we're trying to do a cost recovery on the county's doing business.
Yeah, that was the exact point I was going to make. Thank you for being so detailed in it, is that there is a cost to the county. Our budget is set on these fees that come in and then pay for their salaries. So if they're doing work, if they're not doing $950 worth of work, they did $3,500 worth of work. We're then already, you know, giving them a rebate of $2,500. This is $2,500 worth of their work that, you know, we don't have them to already have a refund on. So I think that it is important to notice that they were changing the sign, they came to us and did put our staff through some work, and that needs to be accounted for.
Other committee members?
Yeah, I just want to point out that it's another taxing matter. And to me, if the citizens are paying taxes to them, and then they're paying taxes to us, some of that, you know, I don't like the idea of taxing another government entity, or not taxing, I should say, give them a fee, to be more correct. You know, when the people that are living there are paying for it. It's not the taxing body that's paying for it, it's the people living there. So we charge the people that are living there the fee for their fire department. And a lot of them might be mad that they're doing it. So we might be charging a fee for what maybe a good portion of people don't even want to have. But whatever it is, there's a fee. So I'm against charging a fee for this stuff unless there's a real lot of cost involved. There obviously isn't. So,
Jim, and then I'm Brent.
Yeah, as I say, we batted this around forever. And we did look at costs. David said a lot what I was going to say, but we did look at costs. And we thought what would be reasonable for other governmental entities. And to avoid what's going on here, we said we'll give a $2,500 credit to any governmental unit. Now, we have actual costs, not just staff costs, but we're writing checks to somebody, like publishing costs. So the past board came up with this in an attempt to eliminate them constantly coming here. I guarantee you, the Creek Fire Department does not waive all fees to all governmental entities. I guarantee you that. They don't do it. So my point here is that, we try to come up with a system so staff can say, you get $2,500, that's it. And I think it's worked for a number of years. And if you're going to start changing it, then that policy just goes out the window. Because now you made exceptions to it. So, it kind of my opinion is we should try to stick to what we put in place, because I think it's more than fair to any other governmental unit. And I also, and just kind of going off on another subject here real quickly, we probably need to relook at the sign ordinance again. And by the way, Steve said there's no problem. They go from a static sign, which could be a lit or non-lit sign, to a digital sign. They got around electricity, a lot of these, all that has to be inspected. There's real cost for us, and we probably need to look at that sign ordinance, because we really did focus on big signs initially, so the smaller dynamic signs may have come into place. But the truth is all signs now are dynamic signs. Nobody's buying signs and going up the letters anymore. So we probably need to relook at dynamic signs for business and governmental units and how we treated that. Because I think that we have another one coming up, I think, from Plainfield, same deal. I think we probably do need to take a look at it. But on the subject of waiving fees, I think we're more generous.
I'm comfortable with the $2,500 waiver. Can't we, can you remind me, didn't they get a grant for this sign? Right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, they were awarded a grant. I don't know the details of it. I don't know how much it was, but they did receive a grant in order to do the dynamic display sign. I also wanted to mention, if it wasn't clear earlier, when I was talking about the publication costs, those are costs that are paid to the newspaper. So, and that's why I was saying earlier that it'd probably be not wise to start reimbursing that cost, because that's required by law that it has to be published in a paper. And for the department to just incur this cost because another body wants to do something doesn't seem very fair to the taxpayers. So that's the reason, that's behind the publication cost.
I agree with waiving the 2,500, but not the additional fees.
And the 2,500 is automatic, right?
That was already done at the time we submitted.
All right, so.
That was my misunderstanding on what I was reading. I was thinking that the 950 was in place of the 2,500. I read it backwards. Okay, got it.
So if we did not want to award them additional funds, we would make a motion to not move forward? Is that?
Or just not make a motion
You
at
don't
all
think
and it would
okay,
die.
all right.
So I guess, does anybody want to make a motion on number?
Well, you should make a motion on the positive and then vote on the. That's
Or
what the
not make a
state's
motion.
attorney usually
Right,
says.
is that what you want?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So, does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for the
Before you make that, is there a way of making a motion to say that we won't pay for the publication, but we will pay the other, we'll waive the 950?
You could make two different
There would
motions,
have to
if
be
you have to,
two different motions, but I don't
assuming the
know.
first one didn't pass, you could then make a motion for the second one, and then,
Yeah. So we'll deal with the motion to approve. Is there a second? It's a second. All in favor signify by aye. Okay, roll call?
Tyler Markham,
No.
Mark Ferry,
No.
Steve Balich,
Yes?
Amanda Cook,
No.
Jacqueline Trainier,
No.
Rachel Ventura,
no.
and Tom Weigel.
No.
Do you want to make a motion, Steve, or?
Well, judging from that, I don't think so.
Okay. So moving on to number 3, we have Fulton 70 amending Chapter 55, Section 55.005 of definitions, and Chapter 164, Section 164.004 definitions and technical guidance for manual reference, which is a mouthful.
Mr. Chairman, you'll remember I was here in July talking about this same subject, and I told you then I would bring it back today for a public hearing, take public comment, and then it'll go to the county board in September for approval. Basically, I'll just reiterate, and I don't necessarily, I think you have my handouts on your thing. So we're changing Chapter 55 and 164 of the county code to reflect the new publication that the state has put out with new rainfall data, updated rainfall data. And then we're also changing the technical guidance manual, which provides more information and clarification to engineers that are working on projects for the county that are designing stormwater facilities. And so unless there's specific questions, there's really, we're adopting the new numbers. So unless there's specific questions, I don't know that I need to reiterate everything I said last month.
Any questions?
Did you say we need a public hearing
Yes, sir.
here or?
Here, and yes, a public hearing here, and then your recommendation to approve it, and then the county board will pass
So
resolution.
that'd be at the next meeting?
No, it can be today, we published for it.
Did we publish for it?
Yes.
Okay, so we need a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion. Second.
And it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Tyler Markham,
Yes.
Mark Ferry,
Yes.
Steve Balich,
Yes?
Amanda Cook,
Yes.
Jacqueline Trainier,
Yes.
Rachel Ventura, Tom Weigel.
Yes.
All right, so we are in public hearing, so does anybody from the public have any comments, questions, concerns? Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, and any three members?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. Roll call, please.
Tyler Markham,
Yes.
Mark Ferry,
Yes.
Steve Balich,
Yes.
Amanda Cook,
Yes.
Jacqueline Trainier,
Yes.
Rachel Ventura, and Tom Weigel.
Yes.
All right, so then we need a motion to approve this and move it to the September county board meeting. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next up, we have number 4, amending section 155-9.130H, cargo container regulations, and 155-10.10, accessory use for cargo containers. We've been kicking this around for a few months and getting it all straightened out, so if you want to give us a quick rundown on.
Based on your comments from the July meeting, I've pared down the ordinance, proposed ordinance to what you have in your packet. Typically, section H3 is identifying that anything will need to be a special use permit. And then everything in 9.290 is all new. And that is also identifying, once again, reiterating that this is a special use permit. And then what we're looking at in the special use permit, the facade and building materials, the roof design and its materials, and how the materials will be uniformly positioned along the structure. We can add to other items that you would like to discuss in that. Next would be, there was concerns about the stacking of cargo containers at the last meeting. That is automatically addressed within the building code. It is building code that regulates the height. So that is already taken care of. And so we also identified that within the building code, any special materials testing can be taken care of, as well as any final grade. That's taken within the building code. And then letter C, hopefully this language satisfies your concerns about erecting a container on end. Yes, there was confusion with the last language. Hopefully this alleviates that confusion. And then on page 3, page 2 is all existing material. It's just page 3 at the very end is what we have to add on to that. And again, this is instead of primary uses, this section is regarding the accessory uses. Again, as a special use permit.
Yeah, so where we changed the vertical, what number is that? 4 dash, it used to be at H, but it's not on there anymore.
No, it's letter C.
C.
On page 2.
No, on
On the iPad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, see, it's not right, perfect. And then there is just a small error. It says ACES under 4-C, 10 ACES in the area, so we went to the acres.
And that's,
Page 3 on the document,
okay.
and then number 4, the cited at least 10 ACES in the area.
Oh, yes, okay. That's,
It's a small thing.
yep. That's okay.
Pretty small area.
Yep.
All right, it's been moved, moving forward and seconded. Does anybody else on the committee have anything? All right, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, we have reports, communications, and correspondence. I have nothing. Committee members? Nothing. David? Nothing. Others? Jim?
I know that it was voted down, but the one thing I did forget to mention about waiver of fees, and maybe Matt would make a comment. You know, the other intent was so we were always consistent. Remember, you don't want to be arbitrary and capricious. And when you start changing it for everybody, it goes out the window. So that's the other point. I don't know if they will appeal to the full county board on this. They believe they have any right to do that. So they may appeal this to the full county board, but remember, you know, if you're not consistent, then you have a problem. And it's usually a legal problem, whether it's with another government entity or anyone else. So I just wanted to point that out as you go forward to give it an additional thought. Because I would expect they'll appeal this to the full court. Thanks.
David?
I was just reminded that I should let you know is that Jess has left the county and is going to the village of Plainfield. So you won't be seeing her at any of our meetings, but she's a very good employee. She's now being working with the village.
I believe Will County is better than Plainfield, so.
I guess I just want to make a formal ask then to bring back the sign ordinance to discuss the negative point. We're going to have more and more dynamic signs. My biggest concern is lighting, light pollution. So I'd like, if you're going to make a focus on anything, that would be my ask, is to look at standards, dark sky standards, as well as urban standards, and see how we compare to our current ordinances as well as what's in the surrounding area.
Well, get like our rundown on what it is, and we can all take a look at it and see. Because I'm pretty sure, for some reason I remember seeing something about it, so.
We went over the
Mhm.
before, but we never addressed changing.
Okay, well,
I have to look at that.
we can take a look and see if there's something we want to change, so. Public comment? I can't believe you guys both stayed, that's impressive. Anybody else from the public? I see somebody standing outside, so.
You want me to go get them, Tom?
No, it's okay. It's only Nick Palmer, it's okay. Public comment? We don't need executive session, so entertain a motion to adjourn. Then moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Our next meeting is September 10th, so be here 10:30.